This is my presentation on the fault tree analysis and the events that lead up to the Hard Rock Hotel collapse on October 12th, 2019 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Whenever the engineers designed the building, they wanted to do a high rise and have 18 stories, and they plan to have mixed developments with hotel rooms, retail spaces, a rooftop bar, and a rooftop pool. The problem was, in this area there's a lot of height restrictions and restraints to limit them in what they could do. So the engineers went to the city, and in order to have the 18 stories for a modern high-rise building, they wanted the penthouse suites to have 13-foot-high ceilings, but the city kept the height restraint at 190 feet, which limited the design a little bit. So when they changed the design, the beams that were supposed to have been 21 inches were reduced down to 10-inch beams, to where they could keep the 13-foot ceilings in the penthouse areas. When they did this, it made it to where the load capacity was reduced by a lot. Whenever they ordered part of the steel beams, whenever they came in, they were shorter than they initially thought they were going to be. And over here you can see where the bolt holes don't even line up. So instead of them being bolted and welded, they were just simply welded. And that made it to where they could not hold near as much weight as what they were supposed to. In addition to having these smaller beams and just welding it instead of it being bolted in, they changed the metal decking. Was supposed to be 18 gauge steel that the concrete was supposed to be poured on top of, and they changed it to 22 gauge, which is a lot thinner and doesn't hold up near as well. They were supposed to have, with these span of the beams that they were having, they were supposed to have had 24 columns, and instead only 12 were used. That made the span and the load that the columns that were in place was supporting was way higher than they could support. And you can see here in this picture that the temporary shoring beams were actually bending in the days before the collapse, and it was actually reported to some of the site supervisors, and the workers were told to go back to work, and they were ignored. The structure failure actually happened, it began on the top floor, and with the failure of the top floor, it began a cascading of pancake effect. It just, that floor fell on the next floor, the next floor, the next floor, and 3 workers were killed and many were injured. Not only was the structure itself damaged, but part of the surrounding buildings were as well. In the root cause analysis, which is what's shown on this slide, it shows the full root cause analysis for the Hard Rock Hotel collapse. The primary root cause was structural design failure, including the incorrect load calculations and under designing of the beams. There was also communication failure between the engineers, the contractors, and the inspectors that led to problems not being corrected. There's actually OSHA violations that were given in September before the collapse, where the beams were supposed to have been supported by additional columns, and all that was ignored. Some of the inspectors that were signing off on pouring the concrete, they found that on the days that the permits were signed off on, the inspectors' vehicles weren't even in the area. So they found that the GPS they weren't even in the area, so there's no way it could have been inspected to been signed off on. So decisions were made to work around the design constraints without addressing them. Materials and installation issues played a big role, and also it says on this root cause analysis that corrective actions were identified to focus on improving design review, enforcing inspections, strengthening communication, and in the end it shows that the analysis shows multiple failures, not just a single issue. About 10 months after the initial collapse, they tried using some robots to perform the demolition, and then they finally got it stable enough that they could use a controlled implosion to finish demolishing what remained of the building and the two adjacent buildings. And the final body was recovered at this time, approximately 10 months later. So not only was it a really catastrophic event with 3 fatalities, the building had to completely be demolished. And I think it said the city was out taxpayers for like $10 million. And there were so many different entities that were led up to this collapse that they never really could find out who exactly was the fault. And finally, the family got a little bit of compensation, but it was I think it was 2023. So, pretty good while for those families to have to deal with all of this, and it's pretty bad that they couldn't find one person that could be at fault because there were so many problems that were going on. But that's my presentation on the Hard Rock Hotel collapse in New Orleans in October of 2019.